All right, so today we're talking about other people who have it worse. An hour ago, I got a text message from a person who wanted to know if I had time to hang out because her main plans had fallen apart and she had nothing to do. I hate being people's backup plan. Like, if you're not going to be around this weekend and you tell me that, don't expect for me to make any room in my schedule for you. So, I was looking through the comment section and this comment really stood out at me because it really is the way that we feel about life. One of my last classes for my psychology degree, the professor said to everyone in the classroom, whenever you feel like looking up in your life, don't look up. Always look down because if you look up, you're going to find yourself feeling bad because you see all these people that are doing better than you are. But if you look down, you know, like at the homeless people and people who are substance abusers, people who are less than you, make less money than you, then you'll always feel good about yourself. Looking up only hurts. How do you say that to your graduating class? It was a psychology 490 class. I think it was called industrial psychology. And the professor had the audacity to be telling us all semester long that we were losers. We were losers with $50,000 worth of student loan debt for a degree that was useless. And so when I saw this particular comment and I got the title, Other People Have It Worse, it reminds me of these people that don't understand the suffering of ordinary people. Because if you're like me, you're sitting in the dark, you're alone, you just spent an hour with someone that you would rather be with, but I think she had to let me know that there was no chance by telling me that she'd broken up with her boyfriend about 6 months ago, but that she was still seeing him occasionally for the indoor Olympic events. With that said, let's get into the monologue. You ever notice how other people have it worse? Is always used to shut you up, not lift you up. Like your pain suddenly disappears just because someone else is bleeding more. That's not empathy, it's avoidance, dressed up as wisdom. And honestly, I'm done pretending that survival is something to be proud of when all it's done is teach us how to suffer silently. This topic is near and dear to me because suffering in silence is what this country is about. America isn't great. America never was great. Every country in the world is a third world country to the 99%. They tell us stupid things like you live in the greatest country in the world while simultaneously having millions of homeless people and people living paycheck to paycheck. People that by just being alive have to suffer. People that know that there's no way out. With tens of millions of people in the wage cage with no way out, no one's coming to save the proletariat. And I love saying that because no politician, no rich person has ever cared. Um, there are no people advocating for poor people. We don't have lobbyists for poor people. In fact, I would say that we have lobbyists going against the interests of poor people every single day, dismantling social services, cutting out services, essential services, telling people that don't have money that they have no value in society is what our government is doing right now. You need help financially? How about getting a second job? It's what the governor of Arizona said during the pandemic when he decided to cut federal unemployment benefits. When reporters asked him, "Well, what are people going to do?" "Get a job." And you're just like, why is that always the answer to everything? Get a job. And then you think about it, then you open up Indeed and you look around. It's like this crap piece of junk, low paying, entry level job is supposed to save me from poverty? What the hell is wrong with you, rich people, government people? People can't support themselves on these so called jobs. They're not real jobs, they're one level. And I would say almost on the same level as a type of slavery. When you don't make enough money to own your own home and buy a car, and you're working 40 hours a week, and the only answer is to work more hours while still living in survival mode, that's not a real answer. That's a cop out. Talking point number one: just because someone else is suffering more doesn't mean your pain isn't real. Using others' struggles to silence someone emotional emotionally suppression, not strength. Okay, so maybe I read that wrong. It sounded wrong all inside my mouth. Using others' struggles to silence someone is emotional suppression, not strength. We don't heal by playing the who's got it worse Olympics. The who's got it worse? I mean, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, who's got it worse? You or the homeless person that's currently face down in a ditch? To me, that's pretty damn close. If you're working a low paying job, you're already in the ditch. All that needs to happen now is for you to lower your face into the mud, and now you're at the bottom of society. A person that never mattered and would never matter. You weren't going to raise yourself from rags to riches because that's not real. And that's like the rags to riches thing to me is rich people telling you to play the lottery. Becoming comfortable with your finances shouldn't be about winning. It should just be about living your ordinary life, going to a job you don't like, and just going to work. There should be some dignity in going to work, but it doesn't exist. And since I've been alive, the dignity of work has never existed. It's always been about the humiliation of work, a job that you can't afford to go to, a job that sees you as less than human, a job that wishes that they didn't have to pay you. Talking point number two: pain doesn't need to be earned. Okay. You don't need to hit rock bottom to deserve rest, support, or empathy. Telling people to endure more because others have it worse is how we normalize suffering. That's exactly what Dave Ramsey does every single day on his show. Oh well, you shouldn't live past your means. You should you shouldn't use credit cards. You should buy your car with cash money. Like normalizing things that are completely unrealistic. If you need a house, make sure that you save enough money so that you can buy a house with cash so you don't have to pay interest. Never buy something you can't afford. Well, since most of us can't afford to buy food, housing, or transportation, are we just supposed to lay down in the ditch? If you ask any rich person, a conservative Republican, or a libertarian, they would tell you yes. Because in their own minds, there's no such thing as people who aren't making enough. These people honestly believe that there are enough resources for everyone, when the reality is there aren't. There never were, and the system is working as it was intended to work, to mercilessly benefit from the suffering of others. Suffering is built right into the system. It always has been. And anyone that tells you that that's not true, that everyone can become rich, is living in a fantasy world or wants you just to shut up because other people have it worse. I think telling people who work 40 hours a week that they just need to work harder is an absolute abomination. If you're working just as hard as you possibly can, because remember, in our society, the hardest working people are generally the people that are treated the worst. Think about how much respect you get for being a janitor, or even worse, a technical janitor. At my Evil Corp, they combine the job of janitor with technology. 80% janitor, 20% technology. The pay is minimum wage. When you think that things can't get worse in society, imagine merging two jobs that have nothing to do with one another, and you're asking a guy that went to ITT Tech to unclog a toilet that has a giant turd in the bottom of it without a glove, without any sort of protection. Just reach down there, grab it, and pull it out. Don't wash your hands. Just smell your fingers. Because what you're smelling on your fingers is life. That's what life smells like for the proletariat. And no matter how much we try to scrub our bodies at the end of that shift, the smell of the proletariat never goes away. We always smell like that. And the reason we can't come together as a fighting force is because we all smell like that. When the proletariat smells another prole, they can smell failure, they can smell the toilet, and they can see the look of desperation in your eyes. The number one reason to hire someone in corporate America is to see how desperate, how much can you exploit this person for as little money as you're willing to pay that person. The technology field 20 years ago used to be a viable source of income. It used to be something that you could do to start a family, build a home, and actually have wealth. It's deteriorated to minimum wage jobs and call centers. And I think that every person that goes to a pay to a paid education system comes out on the other end and realizes, oh my God, I just paid to become a carpenter, and for the next 5 years, I'm going to work really hard for basically the minimum wage. In fact, I was having this discussion a couple of days ago with a guy that knew Mike Rowe. And for this episode, this TV episode that never ended up airing, they found 4 guys out of high school. They put them through trade school and then started them at a job. Within weeks, all of them had quit that job, this skilled labor job, because the work was too hard and the pay was too low. That's what they offer in paid education. You're not going to rise to the top in the first year or second year. It's going to take you time to become a master at your trade. In fact, today, while I was at the salon, the receptionist looked at the customer. She said, you have to pay more money in order to see this technician because now they are considered an elite. And I was just like, wait a minute. You're charging them more because your worker is a higher level? That didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. She's like, she just got promoted to elite worker, and I just didn't make any sense to me. Why? Can you imagine that? You're going through the drive-through at McDonald's, and suddenly they tell you, oh, you have to pay more for this worker because they just got promoted, and we need your money in order to pay their salary. In fact, I saw this from Doug Faulkner this morning. The comment goes, McDonald's has thousands of professional clowns, also known as their workers. If you're making $20 an hour for any corporation, you're a clown. And you're a professional clown. They dress you up in your little hat, put your name tag on, and tell you to smile. Professional clowns all the way around. And the worst part about a professional clown is you get paid in peanuts. All right, let's go to talking point number 3. Society glorifies silent suffering as if enduring quietly makes you noble. We're taught to be proud of surviving hell instead of being angry it was hell in the first place. Just because you're enduring doesn't mean you're thriving, and we need to stop confusing the two. No one in our society that's an hourly worker right now is thriving. That is a myth perpetuated by the elites to keep the proletariat chasing the carrot. That eventually, if you work hard enough, you're going to thrive. But if you spent your whole life working like myself, aren't thriving, but have been stuck in survival mode since you were a teenager, you realize that it was always smoke and mirrors. And that's the sad part, is that confusing the two of surviving and thriving is another form of control. I've come to the conclusion myself that living within a society not as a wealthy person means that someone always has their boot on your neck because they have to keep you desperate enough to come back to work. but never give you enough resources for you to be able to compete against them. The last thing a McDonald's wants is for a worker to become wealthy enough to open their own restaurant and directly compete with their own brand. That's why everything in this country is a monopoly. The players who won the game already won it. And think of this as a game of Monopoly, right? All the good real estate's taken, and you keep going around the board paying everyone else because you're on their property. And there's nothing that you can buy within your price range. You can't even get a pot to pee in. And that's how bad society's gotten. I know I'll never own a home. I still have 3 years left on my car loan, and I don't think my car has 3 years left in it. I know a person who paid off their car after about 18 years, and they just paid off their car. They bought it used when it was 10 years, and it took them this long to finish paying off the rest of it. They're so proud of owning their own car, and you just kind of look at it, it's like, that's a jalopy. That's not really a car. That car is one day away from needing a new transmission or an engine or some major car repair that you can't afford. It's what I think about every time I get into my Promobile and I wonder what's going to go next. I've already had to put so much money into rotors and brakes that the next repair might not be within my paycheck, meaning I will be making payments on a car that I can't afford to drive, even though for these people, it's paid off. So, yeah, it's a strange world we live in. All right, final talking point. Emotional walls kill connections. Families and relationships fall apart when people can't open up or admit pain. Some people hide behind strength and control because vulnerability terrifies them. But healing starts when anyone has the courage to speak honestly. That's what I do on this channel every single day. People tell me that I'm repetitive, that my thumbnails are getting too repetitive, and that the channel just seems like it's one long complaint against society. But let me tell you this. When you turn on the mainstream media, what do they do to you every single day? They tell you everything's great, the economy's great, the weather's great, that some terrible things happen in another country. There's another airplane that fell out of the sky. If you think my channel's repetitive, imagine how repetitive it is to hear the same optimistic message every single day while you're suffering at your job. That somehow everything is great according to the media, but you know better. Things don't pass the sniff test in our world. And you're going to come here and say that I'm the person who's wrong because I failed at life. Well, for all of those winners out there, congratulations. Because as long as you think that everyone can win like you, there's nothing wrong within society. I'm here to tell all the losers that you were meant to lose. That you were all meant to continue playing the lottery, hoping that one day your number would come up. And on that day, you could leave behind all the other losers and go and take your place among the wealthy people. But I assure you, tens of millions of working class proletariat people, most of us will never get there. And the fact that we're expected to own nothing and be happy is a reflection of our current society. A reflection of our society that I'm not comfortable with. I'm not going to be complacent and just sit here and pretend that nothing's wrong. If I have to make 10,000 videos saying the same thing, I will. Because I have made thousands of videos sharing the same thing with you guys, that things aren't okay. And things will not become okay until you decide to make things change. Because change, it's with the proletariat. If there's power, it's with the proletariat.